So in this screencast, I'm going to show you how to create essentially your own image gen MCP server using Laravel's AI SDK and Laravel's MCP offering. Because what we're going to do in the end is make this to where you could connect it to your Claude AI or any other service you're using that you can leverage MCP. So I have a brand new Laravel installation, and what we're going to need to do is just get a little setup here. So we're going to do some composer installs. So we're going to require Laravel AI. We're going to require Laravel MCP after that. So we're going to do MCP. And then after that, we're going to do the, we're going to publish the configs. So publish the AI config and then the one for the MCP server. We're not going to run any migrations because we're not using the conversations feature. Something to note is that once you install this, if you go to your public, or excuse me, your routes folder, you're going to have an AI.php, which we're going to utilize here in a moment. So to kind of get us going, one of the first things we're going to need to do is establish a server. So if we go down here, they have this PHP artisan make MCP server. We're just going to call this image gen server. And if we just pull this up, you'll see there's a boilerplate here. We're just going to sit there and say use to create images, right? And you'll notice there's a tools list that you can register, resources, prompts, which in our case, we're actually going to need to make a tool. So if we go down here to the documentation, you see there's an artisan command called PHP artisan make MCP tool, and we're just going to call this generate image. And then so if we go to generate image, you'll see we have this as well. Generate image using users input. All right, so we have that. So as you see, there's also some boilerplate stuff here. But what I want us to first do is just show that we're going to have this up and going. So as you see in this AI.php file, you see there's actually a default route that we're going to sort of use. We're just going to call this image gen. We're going to pass in the image gen server. So we have that. And so now you might be sitting there saying, well, how do we know this actually works? Well, as part of the MCP offering, they actually have a way for you to run this to where you can use the inspector. So PHP artisan MCP inspector, and after that you're going to need to pass in this path to match your route, right? So we're going to do that, and what this is going to do, we should get another tab open up here in a moment, which is going to point directly to our MCP server, right? And let's see here, and I see what the issue is here. So it looks like whenever I created the app, we're just going to sit there and say image gen dot test, and we're going to try this again. I'm going to close that out. All right, image gen dot test. Okay, so we go there, and of course if I go to tools, you're not going to see anything, and that's because I didn't add that to that tool array, but it does show that at least we can connect to the MCP server. So we're going to go back to our image gen server. We want to add our generate image tool. So now if I was to reconnect, go to tools, list tools, you'll see we have an image gen tool. But as you notice, we don't have a way of putting any sort of information into it. So this means that we're going to have to define how the tool works. Well, you'll see in the tools area there is what they have. They have a schema. So the way this sort of works is that you can give this like a description, right? Is what we want. So we say we want to pass a string, description of what the user wants, and then we want to make it required, right? And then up here, we can sit there and say we want to get the description from the request, And then we want to get the description from that. And then we want to sit there and say using the description. Okay. So if we go back and reconnect once again, go to Tools, ImageGen. Looks like what did I miss here? Let's just reconnect. We're going to disconnect and reconnect again. Okay, so how about we do this then? We're just going to rerun the entire inspector, because by the way this is set up, we should be getting that on the tool. All right, there it is. So we have this. Now if I sit there, say test description, and I run the tool, generate content using the test description. Cool, right? So now we're going to have to do the part to where we button in the AI, because right now we're not using AI. So one of the first things we got to do is add a environment key. So I'm going to likely zoom in on the video to where you can't see the entire key. We'll scroll this back to the top. And then we're going to go back to ImageGen. So now we have an API key, but now we're going to have to actually create something with AI. So in Laravel's AI SDK, there is a images section. Where are you? Here we go. Okay, so we want to use Laravel's image class from the AI. We want to use this. So we're going to sit there and say image of, and then we want to pass our description into it, which we could just do that directly, but I'm just doing this to keep things simple. But note, when we say generate, we're going to have to tell it that we want it to use OpenAI, right? Now, of course, this is going to do a process with AI, right? But we also now need to save this. So this is going to give us an image, but now we need to get this into storage. So we're going to say store publicly publicly as, and then we just want to give this a name, like we'll call it image. Let's do something simple. Just throw a timestamp on it. Of course, you wouldn't do this likely in production. You probably give it something else. We don't need to pass anything here, but the third part, we do need to give it the name of the disk. Because right now, if you said, even though if you didn't put public here, this would actually locally store it as private. But that's going to give us a path, right? And then we need to get our URL, which we can use the storage facade to do this. So we can say disk path. Actually, that would be URL. We're going to import our storage facade. Make that the public disk. And this is going to be where we're going to need to give change. I'm going to change the response, but I don't want to just use text. So what I want to say is instructions, and of course you could say the same thing. Return the image of the or return the image URL to the user, right? And then I could sit there and say, here's the URL. But of course, we're not going to wrap it in any sort of image tag, because some MCP servers will render it, some will not, but we just want it to give you an image, right? Okay, so we have our description that we know takes. We have our response to say what to return. We have the ImageGen AI. So we have that buttoned up. So what we're going to do now is if I go back to the inspector, and now I sit there and say, let's just say a race car. So as you notice, it's going to take a number of seconds because we're calling, in this case, OpenAI to generate an image. All right, so now we have our results. And do we have an image? Yes, we do, right? So that's the cool part. So now we need to make this to where we could connect it to Claude. And the way we'll do this is if you use like Laravel Herd, like I do, they use expose. So I could say herd share, and this is going to give me a share URL. We're going to have to go up here to the app URL, and we're just going to temporarily put this value in. And the reason for this is that with the way the request comes in, you'll notice that it's going to actually use this URL. So we just need to kind of override that temporarily. You could do this in your files system config, but we're just going to set that up like this, right? So as of right now, we should be able to now go to Claude. And so the way you would do this, so we're just going to go as an example to show you how to get here. So you could go click the plus, say add connectors, right? You could say manage connectors and then add a custom one. But note, we're just going to sit there and say image gen, give it a name. And so that's the URL. However, remember, we're going to have to give it that full path. So MCP image gen. And if all goes well, so we have so you see how it shows configure, that means that we are connected. So now if I go to start a new chat, all right, so let's create an image using image gen, create image of a private jet. And we're going to say allow. All right, so we say show image. See how it gives us that. And boom. So just like that, we created an MCP server that creates basically an image generator service, just like the one you see on OpenAI. We got to use Laravel's AI SDK in the process, and we got to use the inspector, and we got to produce an image. So if you like this video, give me a share, give me a like, leave me a comment. See you on the next one.